This is Dr. Allison Bremner with Cultivating Success, the podcast geared towards students in chiropractic school and recent grads. And today I have a very special guest. This is Dr. Norris Golberg. He practices in Colorado, kind of near my office. And he's going to talk to you about why you are not meant to serve everyone and what that means. Hey, Doc.
Hey, Doc. Thanks for having me. And pleasure to be here. Excited to share.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in practice, where you practice, and what sort of technique that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated Life University in March 2016, and I practiced for a few years as an associate in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, and then took the big leap and jumped into my own private practice, started from scratch just outside Boulder, Colorado, pretty near you. And I practiced NUCA and the Pierce Results System. So both specific techniques focusing on both upper cervical spine and the full spine.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're just going to jump right into it today. And, Dr. Golberg hasn't been in practice that long, so you can still remember what it was like to be in school. What got you into chiropractic school?
Well, I was a strength conditioning coach. I was thinking I wanted to do something more with my life, grad school, maybe an MBA program. I kind of really wasn't sure. I was lost. And I was playing semi-pro rugby, and I played for Boston, and eventually we played against Life University. So kind of got me interested in chiropractic and what was the deal with that and why did they have so many good rugby players on their team, and told my dad, who's actually an orthopedic surgeon, and he took it pretty well. A lot of people wonder what that response was, but he did great. And he said, go shadow a couple guys that I know in town. So first guy I shadowed was a Palmer grad, kind of a flying seven type doc, but big green book philosophy type guy. And he infused me with the principle day one. I just really clicked with me. I really loved the idea of it, and saw the kind of results he was getting in his office. And it just grew from there, because then I obviously found more specific techniques and something that, just rested with my heart a little better.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, I myself played collegiate basketball. I think a lot of athletes get into chiropractic. We're going to get into this, how you think it's one thing, especially from coming from an athletic background. It actually is a little bit different. So if you could go back in time and you see that kid going into school, what advice would you give to yourself?
Well, definitely try a little bit of everything, explore the whole profession. I thought I wanted to be a sports chiropractor because I was an athlete. So I really put myself down that rabbit hole pretty hard right from the beginning of school. I got involved in the master's program. And by the time I realized I wanted to go in a little bit different direction, I was really committed to that financially and with my credits. So I decided I might as well finish that, but obviously a lot of time and money. And if I had to say one thing to students or to myself going into school, I probably would have said, take it a little less seriously. I finished top of my class. I didn't need close to a 4.0 GPA. That doesn't serve me these days that much, although I can do a pretty good diagnosis and exam if I need to. But the reality is the most of the learning, in my opinion, comes in the extracurricular seminars, going to technique seminars, going to business workshops, really getting yourself prepared for the real world, because they're not going to barely shine a light on that in chiropractic school.
Let me ask you this. Were you a valedictorian?
I was not. I was fourth in the class.
Yeah, that's why you're still practicing. So Dr. Dan Murphy happened to teach at my school. I went to Life West. Mm-hmm. And one thing that he said to me in school that I really took to heart was he had everyone raise. He's like, who in here is like B average? And like people raise their hand. And he was like, I am not concerned about you guys being successful. And he's like, who here is like top of the class? And they raise their hand. He's like, you need to go down to the bar. You need to talk to people and see if you can like pick up people at the bar. Because if you can't do that, you're not going to be successful. And I think that what happens is, as a student, you get so into passing your classes but that is, in my opinion, just irrelevant to being a good chiropractor. Yeah, you don't want to be an idiot. I don't want to see some idiot that like can't do well in school, but like focusing on just school and not the other stuff, I think does you a disservice.
No, I agree. It's always bittersweet saying that, because there was lots of clowns in the class who I wish they did better. And of course, we're doctors first and foremost. We have a lot of responsibility on our hands. But, I was so academic, let's say, during school. When I got out of school, it took a lot to shake that off. And, I kind of had to go back to that bar scene, and learn how to pick people up and work it out. And it took a lot of trial by error. So it's something you can definitely strengthen those muscles when you're in school and you're honestly doing it on some other doc's dollar.
Yeah. I mean, before we get into some other questions, because I had talked to you about some different questions, so I'm going to throw these at you. But what would you think the best thing that you learned being an associate in that Florida office?
It was just having all of the experience, honestly, and having something to fall back onto. I kind of had no fear. And I said, I just had that resilience to go out there and try anything. And whether it was just different marketing techniques or, learning how to converse with difficult patients, right? And if something went wrong, I never really had to feel that repercussion the way I do now. And if something went right, it was a win for everybody. So it was really great to have that team mentality when you're coming out of school and not feeling like you're on an island.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to make sure if there's, especially when it comes to difficult patients, I know in school you guys think that, every person is going to be wonderful, and most of them are, but you will have some difficult personalities to deal with. And I try to make sure when Colby has a difficult person that I just take care of it myself and I don't try to put her in a situation. And I always back my doctor. Always, always, always. And I think that there's power in that, because when you graduate, you're scared, like if someone comes and tries to be difficult with you, that's very scary by yourself, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And yeah, when you're feeling insecure, when your self-esteem maybe is not as high as it could be, maybe you don't have as much money in the bank as you want, you can start making compromised decisions, right? But when you have a team around you who can really sort of guide you through that, you really find your path and what the right answers need to be.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me, when you were in school, you kind of talked about this a little bit, but what would your practice like filled with your favorite patients? Who did you think that they were going to be?
Yeah, so I was a rugby athlete going into chiropractic. I got a partial scholarship going to Life University. I thought, oh my God, this is awesome. I was doing muscle testing. I was doing extremity adjustments. I thought, this is amazing. I'm just going to help more athletes. I came from the strength conditioning setting. I played college football. I thought, what better than just taking care of my buddies all day? But with time, I just realized that probably wasn't going to be a good solution. And actually, I didn't completely figure that out until I was in the real world dealing with paying athletes instead of just student athletes who, get that free care and just say thank you because they're grateful versus quite honestly, athletes are one of the toughest populations to take care of because they usually have an acute injury that they want better in a very short period of time because they've got a competition coming up, and they have usually unrealistic expectations about what's going to happen to their body and how quickly they can heal and how quickly they can perform. And it kind of just puts an undue pressure, or at least I put undue pressure on myself. Like I was going to fix all of those problems at once. And that just robbed a lot of joy from practice in my first few years when I was thinking, oh, athletes.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to this. So Life West is right outside where I played basketball in college in San Mateo. That's like South San Francisco area. So I was blessed in the fact that I had a lot of patients easily in my student clinic, but they were all athletes and top performing athletes, and they were a nightmare. And why they were a nightmare for me is because I did end up going into being an upper-cervical doc. And so the difference between wanting to be better and wanting to be better enough to play, those are two totally different things. And I was like this. I know it's like, I've broken my ankle and played on it. I've dislocated things to a point where you don't understand pain anymore. And all that you care about is just playing. Because these athletes are used to being a commodity and they're not thinking about their health. They actually, people think, oh, athletes are so healthy. But what they really want to do is just be able to play.
Yep.
So with chiropractic principle, right? Yes, chiropractic is phenomenal for athletes and they should be taken care of. But you're right about the kind of athlete that is used to getting everything paid for, first of all, because they're going to a top university, or if they're playing professionally, they have people that pay for their care. Mm-hmm. So right there, that's tough to build your practice with people who don't want to pay.
Yep.
Two, they're pain. That's all they care about is reducing their pain, because you're always in some sort of pain, right? You played rugby. Yep. Reducing your pain enough to play. Yep. So that's the difference, is they don't want to actually be well. They just want to be able to play. I think ex-athletes can be like, if you have somebody like I just turned 40 and I'm still playing sports, and my outlook is totally different now. For me, it's fun. It's my outlet. So I'm willing to pay to continue to play that.
Sure.
But that high level elite young athlete, I personally think is a nightmare. And so I hear a lot of athletes that want to help athletes. And don't get me wrong, chiropractic is great for athletes. But man, fill your practice with that. Good luck making a living.
Yeah. And I take care of a lot of weekend warriors and, kind of gym rats and people who love being competitive and taking care of their body as sort of what they would probably consider themselves ex-athletes. But it's those people who are still competing, who are trying to work a full-time job. They don't have a lot of time both for training or for self-care, right? And so that's really where the pressure just gets put on you, and it just makes it not as much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so then you started transitioning into who now your ideal client is. So let's talk about that. Who's your ideal client? How did you figure that out? And what things did you read or mentors did you have to help you with that? Because I know it took a long time for me to craft who I like to see in the office. It wasn't just like overnight I woke up and was like, oh, I figured it out.
Totally. So I'll kind of go full circle. So I'll start with where I'm at now, which is, I love taking care of busy moms who have put really their families and their careers first and their bodies last for the last several years. And finally kind of coming around, they've got more time on their hands, maybe a little bit more disposable income. The kids are in school full time and they're realizing they're not feeling 30 anymore. They're feeling 40 plus, right? And so they're ready to start investing in their body, investing in their health so they can feel better. They can sleep better. They can function better, feel less stress. And I'm very clear on that now, but coming out of school, I had no idea what that was. An ideal client, a target market, all of that was just obsolete to me. And what I did realize though, early in practice, was that ideal client was actually who I was resonating the most with in practice, is who I was having the most fun with in practice. They're the ones who were putting a smile on my face during the adjustments and who I was really looking forward to seeing those types of people on the schedule versus other types of people. And so as I started to mature in practice and in business and marketing, I just got my hands on more information and books and knowledge. And one of the big influential ones for me would definitely be How to Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port. That really gets about as niche as you possibly can. And from that information there, I just started diving into it more and more and more. And, I just hear those concepts in books to this day. I just read another great book recently, How to Get Different Marketing by Michael Michalowicz. And he says the same thing. He's like, him and Michael Port are buddies, right? So he's like, who's your ideal client? Where's your target market? So when you already know that, you can just take that information and run with it when you add new concepts on top of it in terms of business and marketing skills.
Yeah. And if you've listened to this podcast, there's no original ideas. Everything is just repurposed. Mm-hmm. And I know that you have worked with Sean Dill and Black Diamond Club, and most of what I've learned early on and through business and marketing is through that. Mm-hmm. And he's the one that recommended Book Yourself Solid, right?
Absolutely.
And so what's great about this stuff is you can constantly be working on it. And like you said, once you have a sort of concept of, I understand that I want to fill my practice with people that I love to see every single day. And then every book that you read is just going to help you craft that more and more. And you can just get better and better and better. And I was just talking to some students. I mean, what would you rather have happen? You go to the office, you look at your schedule, and if you're in practice now, or even if you're in student clinic, it's like, oh no, it's Susie. Mm-hmm. I can't stand Susie, but I'm going to take care of her because I'm, whatever, she's coming in the office and she needs care. But imagine your life with a whole practice of Susies. And that's what happens with chiropractors. This is where the burnout happens, is that you don't figure out who you work best with and what brings you joy. And you just see everybody, right? Exactly. And then the people that you come in sometimes aren't the best fit for you. But if you think about, Michelle, my favorite person, I love when Michelle comes in, and I have a full day full of Michelles. I mean, I would say that one, you're going to be happier in practice. You're going to get better care because you're refreshed and happy to see that person. And at the end of the day, you can give better service.
Absolutely. And, a lesson I learned and really kind of appreciate in hindsight, which is 2020, is the first practice I was in, they were with a practice management group that cast a very wide net with small holes, meaning they caught about every fish in the sea. And whether it was people who would come in just for a quick exam and a couple of adjustments and they would disappear and not follow through with care, to, full families and the types of people that you want to take care of. So we would have these great moments where we saw all these ideal clients, and then you could have a whole spree of people who were just a disaster in the office, quite honestly, and not only making it harder to be an excellent chiropractor, making it harder to be an excellent businessman, and also really just trashing your spirit. You go home and you're like, God, I can't believe I have to work with these people all day. But when you start niching it down and focusing on who you really want to work with, it's not always perfect, but you're going to have more joy and happiness there than discontent. And that's the only way to survive practice. It's not easy. So if you're not working with the right people, it's not going to last very long.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that when I go talk to students, when I get the most arm crossed, kind of upset look on their face, is when I tell them, like, you are not meant to serve everyone, which is the title of this podcast. And they I don't know why it feels so abrasive to them, but the reality is your happiness is the most important. And unfortunately, sometimes because you are of service and chiropractors serve populations, you think then that your happiness doesn't matter and everyone else's happiness matters, which is absolutely ridiculous, because if you're not happy, I don't know how you can possibly be of service. Right. And the reality is you are going to think you know who you want to see, but it's going to take some time to craft. The last thing I'll say about this too, in a marketing standpoint, chiropractors love to say, who would be a great person for your office? And they go, anyone with a spine. That's the most ridiculous thing ever. That's like, or you want to buy a Ferrari, for example, and you ask a Ferrari dealership, they're not going to say who's your ideal client, is anyone who wants a car or anyone who has a driver's license. They're like, no, this specific market is the right market for a Ferrari. Somebody flipping burgers at 16 years old probably isn't their ideal client.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially as I got more into my technique and I wanted to move more away from insurance, that became more and more relevant, and again, I started that way where everyone has a spine. Chiropractic's for everyone. I'm for everyone. And I quickly realized there's a lot better and more efficient ways to doing that.
Absolutely. And when you do know who your ideal client is, it becomes easier for marketing. I think chiropractors get really overwhelmed with like, what the heck should I be marketing? Where should I be marketing? Where should I post? And they're just shotgun approach. So like, well, we'll do a spinal screening at the festival, and we'll do some TikTok videos, and then we'll do some Facebook ads. And when they do their metrics, they're like, people from 18 to 60, male and woman, in this 10-mile radius. And then they wonder why they have a bunch of people that don't fit in their office.
Exactly. Well, and I think it, like something you just mentioned a second ago was that it's going to evolve as well, right? So what you might do in your first 5 years of practice is going to be different than 5 to 10 years, which is probably different than, your 15th to 20th year, right? And so as you're in practice, your ideal client's probably going to evolve, and you might grow older with that ideal client, or you may stay in that same target, right? So, I know mine has changed, and I think if I stick with it, it's like we're going to grow older together, and it's going to be a beautiful thing, but you never know what happens in the next 5 or 10 years.
So another thing that I talk about is when you do know your ideal client and then you're able to put your dollars into marketing, it also is what your office looks like. So tell me a little bit about what your office looks like and how that attracts this kind of person into your office.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are serving a cash practice, right? So people need disposable income. They are expecting, I wouldn't necessarily go as far as saying it's boutique, but because we're a specialist, I want it to look like a specialist office. I don't want it to look like a medical office either. We've got some really nice finished woods throughout the office, some nice stone floor. We've got a fridge with, nice drinks. We've got music playing that we know that they are going to resonate with, not necessarily what I'm resonating with. Although I do try to find a match there. I'm not trying to listen to something I don't want to listen to, but they're not necessarily getting like EDM music bumping at 8 a.m. on Monday morning, although that probably would be my preference, right? So we're just trying to really do the things that they like and love so that it resonates with them on a greater and deeper level, and it makes them want to spend more time there and honestly refer their friends because it's talk worthy.
Yeah, and I talk about like why people come to see you is for an experience.
Yep.
And most, when I ask that to a group of students or young chiropractors, I go, why are they paying you? And they're like, results. And I'm like, no, that's not why. You can argue that results are part of the experience. That's fine. I'll go ahead and accept that answer. But the reality is I've had patients that did not get the result I was hoping for. Because we always expect for,
Right.
They come in with migraines. They've had migraines for 30 years. They leave. They never have a migraine ever again.
Right.
The reality is sometimes, people have a limitation of healing or for whatever reason that they still get improvements, but not the improvement necessarily that I would deem, oh, you got the result that I was hoping. But let me tell you something. If they're having a good experience in your office, they will still refer people. And I'll tell you why are people referring? Because you're having a weird experience in your office and you're not looking at it from an outside perspective. Chiropractors, you have to understand that you are a weirdo. And if you don't have an outside person telling you what's weird in your office, then you're just going to have like spines and bones and you think it's cool. And bones and spines to other people, that represents death. That's scary to them. Most people don't want to look at their x-rays because they're like super scared about it. And it's funny to me, and I think I did a whole podcast on like who knows ideal clients. Like just start looking at companies. Think about companies that you love. Like I'm an ideal client for Southwest. I will pay probably $100 to $200 extra per ticket to fly Southwest because I cannot stand flying anything else. Here's why I like them. If I need to change my ticket, I can change it last minute because I like to travel. I have sort of a life that like is pretty flexible. So if I want to change it, I can change it real quick. I can pick the seat that I want to sit in. I'm not assigned a seat. They fly direct to a lot of places I like to go. So it's convenient and fast and very easy to work with. So for me, Southwest, I'm an ideal client for Southwest. So then I start looking at the marketing, and all their marketing is for me. And my experience is awesome. I like the experience on Southwest to me because I don't need foo-foo luxury stuff. In fact, I think I'm always like, ugh, what a waste of money. Like, so Southwest is just like, we just provide the best service possible. Yep. You're able to carry on a bag. We're not going to hassle you about it. That's it. And so everything is, the experience that I have is amazing. And that's why I will continue to fly with them over and over and overpay. I will overpay for a ticket.
Well, and that's what they market to. If you see the billboards on the side of the highway or the TVs or whatever, it's free baggage, free cancellations. And there's somebody that's gonna really resonate with, and the person who wants the little toiletry bag and the foo-foo snack for free, they're gonna go somewhere else, right? And like, for you and I, that's not attractive. So to me, I hate paying $50 extra a bag. It doesn't matter what the price of the flight was. And if I have to pay for a cancellation or insurance, that's going to frustrate me as well. So I would also say, I do resonate with that. I'm an ideal client at Southwest, and they've got their marketing on point.
And when you can start feeling out what you're an ideal client for and start looking at the marketing, then you'll start to see different companies, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's who they're marketing towards. And when you can figure that out, and you see that literally every single profession thinks about it except for chiropractic,
yep,
then you're like, oh, well, maybe we should think about this too, because that's the way that you're going to be able to attract people into your office, and especially people who haven't seen chiropractors. I'll tell you, because of the way that we market and the way that our office is, most of my patients, when I ask them, have you ever seen a chiropractor? They say no.
Right.
And I feel like it's the same in your office, right?
Absolutely. Probably, if not more than half, never seen a chiropractor in their life.
And we talk about that all the time at seminars. We see 10% of the population. We got to see more. And, what do we have to do? And I'm always market better. We have chiropractors have terrible marketing, and that's why we're only scratching the surface at the population. If we can switch that and we can actually market towards 90% of the population who does not see chiropractors, we're going to make a whole more lot impact in our profession, and we'll have more people than we even know what to do with.
Absolutely. And the way to do that is that we all just pick who our ideal clients are, and we branch off and we serve those people, because then we'll spread a wider net than if we just say, hey, we're doing the generalist approach. It just gets watered down and diluted. We never really take strides in different directions.
Totally, because my ideal client might not be your ideal client.
Right.
Someone who I think is a nightmare in my office might be, and probably is, the perfect person in someone else's office.
Right.
Last thing I'll say, my favorite topic to talk about with marketing is you look at Hooters. They know their target market, and they are not ashamed of it, and they lean into it, and it's not for everybody.
Right.
Hooters is not for everyone. They serve wings, but really the experience you're having there is why people go.
Right.
And they're not ashamed of it, and they're very successful.
Exactly.
Anything else that you would like to tell students about this? We can go on, I'm sure.
Something that really allowed me to get granular with this, and I'll give credit to Sean and Lacey with Black Diamond Club. They showed me one time the avatar for Lululemon, which is ocean. So if you go Google Lululemon and ocean, you can see their description, and it's a blog or something out there that shows like how granular you can get in terms of describing and thinking like that person, which was very hard for me to do, because if my ideal client is a busy mom, well, I'm a middle-aged now dad, but like I can't resonate with that. I don't know how they're thinking, shopping, what's attractive to them, all those things. And that really let me grasp how to get into someone else's head and how to think outside the box.
Yeah, I think that getting help and outside perspective is always good. Try to keep around in your life a couple non-chiropractors. They will help you in marketing.
Totally.
All right. Well, I always try to end this podcast with what was people's best and worst business decision. So throughout practice, what would you say? You can do either worst first or best first, whatever you think.
I'll start with worst, so we finish on a positive note.
Okay.
The worst was thinking I was completely ready to go out on my own, which I think I was, but financially, we hit a couple roadblocks, and we didn't have the startup capital and security that we needed to, and things were just really rough and dirty in the beginning, and I had to accept a lot of patients into the practice that I might not have been a perfect fit for. And I look back and I go, wow, we really churned through a lot of people that could have been perfect fits, and we didn't really have ourselves focused at the time because we were so distressed about money. And that can happen throughout practice. It's happened several times to me, even during COVID, and not much you can do about it in the situation. But I'll tell you right now, it's not the best mindset spot to be in. So you really want to try to avoid those situations. Well,
right. If you're struggling for money, it's hard to be of service to people because you're thinking like, oh my God, please sign up for care because I need to like pay the electric bill.
Totally. Or they're like, hey, can I just do walk-ins? And you're like, sure, man, I'll do whatever lets you keep coming. I'm happy. And they see that. And then all of a sudden they're not there. And now they came 3 times instead of 30 times because they didn't get the recommendation that they deserve because you weren't feeling solid that day.
Yeah. And I think that's something that students don't realize is they're like, oh, well, I'll just get a loan from a bank. And like, that's the most ridiculous. Like you can't.
Yeah.
Like think of the bank right now. I'm a banker. You have $250,000 in loans, no business experience, and you want to borrow money and you've never even practiced before. The answer is no.
Right. Well, in my case, I had 2 years experience. I had a big nest egg. I had all this cash, and they finally said, okay, yep, you are actually moving out of state. You have no book of business there. We really don't want to give you any money, but if you can actually get your doors open, then we'll give you some. And even then they actually still pulled out. So, I just caution students, like if you have a cosigner, if you've got a loan lockdown, that's great. But if not, you better have a big freaking nest egg of your own capital and your own willpower to do this. And don't put yourself in a position where, you're going to throw it on high interest credit cards and try to build $1 million practice in 3 months, like I was sold on. And that's just not going to happen. That's a 1 in a million thing. And great, if you're that 1 in a million, amazing. I feel really good for you, because guess what? Someone's going to put you on a stage and say, look how awesome we are and look how we can make people so rich. But that's not the reality of business. And there's a lot better ways to do it and more stable ways to do it that are just going to bring you more joy in practice at an earlier age in practice.
Yeah, the last podcast we did was mindset, money mindset specifically. But if you make yourself so thin, your back's up against the wall, you'll start making decisions that are not best for your patients, not best for yourself. And I think that, like, if we're going to talk about specifically upper cervical, this is not an upper cervical podcast. We happen to both be upper cervical chiropractors, but I see people that are really excited about upper cervical and they are passionate about it, and they get into practice and they just flop on their principles because they're just like, I need to pay the bills. And so if you want to be, stick with your principles, you better have someone guide you along the way, and to not put yourself in that position where you're desperate. Because if you're desperate, it's going to be a tough road for you. Yeah.
Well, and just to share, like at one time I was like desperate, right? Not a lot of money. And I started getting into those cheap Facebook ads where it was like $29. Well, guess what kind of patients you get when you bring in $29 specials? You get $29 patients, right?
Yeah.
And I had to learn that the hard way and lose even more money. I had to throw even more money on that and put myself in even a more difficult situation. And it took about a year to really recover from that and start getting back on track and getting the types of people in the office who we felt like these are the people that we want to serve and serve for life.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about some good news. What is the best business decision that you have made in the last years?
The best business decision I've made is niching down and differentiating myself in practice. It's given me a tremendous amount of clarity and allow me to focus on a few things instead of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting what happens when someone calls. So people always ask me, well, if someone doesn't fit in your office, like, what do you do? And I say, I send them away. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, like this. Someone calls the office and they're like, hey, do you take on walk-ins? And I'm like, no, I do not. And they go, okay, well, what should I do? And I said, you should go to the Joint. It's down the street from my office. They take walk-ins, really inexpensive. They'll get you in. They won't even do it. I mean, maybe they do a history, but not really. They just you walk in, they give you an adjustment. That's it. And what's the response for that person? Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you. And here's the thing. That person either later down the road has a problem that maybe we can help, that they would go ahead and call us back, or maybe they know somebody. And even if that doesn't happen, the flip is the worst. They come into the office, they're expecting something. So specifically for me, it's going to be a nightmare, right? We do knee, chest, upper cervical. They're like thinking they're going to get their back cracked. And they come in and I force them into, well, let me tell you about your back pain can be helped by upper cervical. And they which is true. I'm not saying it's not. I have horrible back pain. Upper cervical is the best thing for me. But I'm saying in that place where that person is, they're not thinking about health and care. They're like, my back hurts. I want to get adjusted. And that's it. They have a terrible experience. Yes, you make whatever money you make during that one appointment. And then you get a 1-star Google review, which is on life for that. It's like a police report. It's like on there for life. Yeah. This person's sleazy. I came in, they talked me in this thing, and they, bait and switched me.
It's not worth it.
So, and here's the great thing that happens. So that person goes away. The next day, Michelle calls. I have migraines for 30 years. I've tried everything. I don't want to take any medication. I don't want to do surgery. I looked on your website. It looked exactly the people that you have on there giving video testimonials look just like me. I relate with them. I looked at your Google reviews. You have 300 5-star Google reviews. I would love to come in. That's what happens. You send away someone who doesn't fit, and then the next day, I'm telling you, the perfect person comes in. Exactly. But if you don't allow that space to happen, you're just going to fill your office with people that don't really work for you.
Absolutely. We actually get excited in the office now when the phone rings and we have to send someone across the road. They're not an ideal fit for us. And we send them across the street. I just go, that's amazing. The phone's ringing. I can't wait for the next one to be the perfect fit.
Exactly.
It's just energy in the office. I'd rather the phone be ringing and having people who aren't fit than just waiting for that perfect person to call every time, because then you're just, scraping for diamonds in the rough.
Yeah, exactly. And then like what you're saying, you're in abundance. You're like not scared. Go somewhere else, and then you just attract the right person. Well, I think we're coming to the end of the podcast here. Do you have anything else you'd like to share that you think that these students and young docs should know?
I definitely encourage you guys, just reach out for mentorship through people like myself or Allison or docs close to school who you can really just get in deeper with and diversify with that too. Don't just get one and get in their back pocket and think this person knows everything and everyone. Really play the whole field, really get a good appreciation for what does practice look like? What are the potentials for practice? And go from there. That's how you're going to get in the deep end as quick as possible.
I agree. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for coming on, Doc. I really appreciate it. All right, guys. Cultivating Success. I release a podcast every first and third Monday. We always interview docs talking about, how we're successful in practice and things that you can do right now. That's it. I'll see you guys later.